What's up, friends? Welcome back to the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Really appreciate you joining me today. Hope you're having a great weekend. We are getting set for Packers Buccaneers on Sunday. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers should be a phenomenal game, but we are finding out that both Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers are not going to have their full complement of weapons in this game. We got the full injury report on Friday, and while we won't know some of the inactives until we get 90 minutes before the game, as Matt LaFleur likes to say, we still have a bit more clarity today than we did yesterday. So let's start by going over the injury report, and then our main topic is going to be the Buccaneers. I had an opportunity to go and watch the All-22 against the Saints last week, both on offense and on defense, and had some key takeaways from that and some things sort of to look for as the Packers get prepared for the Buccaneers this week. So let's start with the injury report. First and foremost, from a Packers standpoint, Sammy Watkins is out in this game. It is another hamstring injury, something he has struggled with already this season, something he has struggled with really throughout his career. And it definitely is a concern at this point because it's something that's plagued him, like I said, throughout the entirety, maybe entirety is a little bit strong, but certainly his recent career. So he has not really ever come back from these quickly in the past. So I'm not saying that it will be something that lingers, but it certainly could be something that lingers. So the fact that this is not like a doubtful or questionable designation for Sammy Watkins would lend me to believe that this is probably one of those hamstring injuries for Sammy Watkins that is going to probably last a few weeks. Hopefully that's not the case. I don't know that for sure. I'm certainly taking just a stab at it here, but based on his recent history with these hamstring injuries, there hasn't really been one where he's like got a hamstring injury and then he's good to go in a week. It just hasn't been that way for him. So definitely disappointing, definitely not unexpected, just because that's what he's basically had, again, throughout the majority of his career. And it's going to be something that he has to fight through again. So Sammy Watkins out this game. And it's disappointing because he had a really nice game this past week against Chicago and really started to get going. You could tell Rodgers was starting to build a little bit of a rapport with him. And now he is going to miss at least 1 week, maybe more. And they're going to have to sort of rebuild that momentum that they already got from this past week against Chicago. So Sammy Watkins is out. And then there are 4 players who are questionable: David Bakhtiari, Randall Cobb, Mercedes Lewis, and Christian Watson. Now, we know the importance of Friday practice. It's not the be-all, end-all, but it is something that definitely matters. And usually, if you're not practicing on Friday, it's not a great sign. So, who practiced and who didn't of those questionable players? David Bakhtiari, Mercedes Lewis practiced. Randall Cobb, Christian Watson did not. Now, let's start with Lewis and Watson because these are the normal sort of injury routines here. Mercedes Lewis practiced, and I would say that that is a very good sign for him, the fact that he was able to go on Friday. And just my gut feel is that Mercedes Lewis will likely play in this game, which would be I get it that Mercedes Lewis isn't doing a ton of the, 6-catch, 80-yard games and 3 touchdowns or anything like that. He is a glorified offensive lineman at this point, a 6th offensive lineman at that, but he is so dang good at it, and they just don't have anybody to take his place, to the extent that, as I mentioned with Mike Wall and on Happy Hour yesterday, that if they don't have him, I fully believe that they would use an offensive lineman primarily in his place. That's where it's at right now. So to have him back potentially, I think would be a huge thing. So he practiced. My gut tells me that he would likely play in this game. Christian Watson did not practice. A little bit tougher to say because he did just play last week. It's tough to say if he aggravated something or not, but the fact that he did not practice on Friday, not a great sign. My gut would tell me he does not play. Now, the other 2, whereas Bakhtiari did practice Friday and Cobb did not practice Friday, I'm almost tend to feel differently on those 2. So Randall Cobb, I think his is an illness, right? So his isn't necessarily like, can he get back from injury on time? It's how sick is he? Can he play through it? And does he get better in time for the game? Now, remember, this is not something that came on like yesterday and all of a sudden he's got an illness and he's questionable for the game. He missed practice all the way from the beginning of the week. So he missed Wednesday's practice, Thursday's practice, and Friday's practice. So that means he was having these symptoms at minimum on Wednesday. So you would hope that it doesn't go Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and on Sunday, and that whatever it is, whatever illness that he has is cleared up by that point. So we won't know that until we get to game day. But If he's either A, all better, or B, able to play through it, that would be a huge get for Green Bay if he could play in this game. So already missing Sammy Watkins, and remember, Allen Lazard was a bit banged up this week. This wide receiver core is a little bit of tough shape right now, so if Cobb could get back from his illness on time, would be very huge for this wide receiver core. And then David Bakhtiari, well, he practiced Friday. At this point, we're just on the all bets are off with David Bakhtiari. I do think it's a positive sign that he practiced Thursday and Friday for the Packers. I do think that this has been a little bit of a tell. Last year when he played, he practiced on Friday. This year when Elton Jenkins finally played, he practiced on Friday. So could this be the week? Maybe. I mean, we're at the point where your guess is as good as my guess, as I think is as even good as Matt LaFleur or Brian Gutekunst's guess at this point. We're just going to have to get to Sunday and see if he's active for the game. I don't know if there's a world where they would activate him and maybe just sort of test him out a little bit here and there, meaning Yash gets the start, but maybe they put him in for a couple drives. I don't know if they would start him and put him on a pitch count. There's so many unknowns with Bakhtiari. So, or maybe he's the emergency guy, right? Maybe they're like, you know what? We feel like he could play. We would like him to play, maybe a week later against New England rather than this game. But if, Yash were to go down, we don't really feel confident with another left tackle. So he's good enough where he's going to be our backup this week. You just don't know. It's like I said, it's almost impossible to say. So, I'm not going to make a prediction really one way or the other, but it definitely is a very good sign that Bakhtiari practiced on Thursday and Friday. And it does seem at minimum that he's getting closer, but who knows? Like I said, your guess is as good as mine. The good news is that Kenny Clark, Allen Lazard, and Mason Crosby, all who had various injury issues or ailments or illnesses this week, are all good to go. None of them had an injury designation and should be ready to play on Sunday. So just to recap the Packers really quick, Sammy Watkins is out. David Bakhtiari practiced but is questionable. Randall Cobb did not practice, has an illness, and is questionable. Mercedes Lewis did practice and is questionable. Christian Watson did not practice, is questionable. Clark, Lazard, Crosby, all should be good to go. Now, from a Tampa Bay Buccaneers standpoint, a little bit different. So Chris Godwin and Akeem Hicks are ruled out for the game, and we already know that Mike Evans is suspended for the game. So those are three major losses for the Bucs: Chris Godwin, Akeem Hicks, and Mike Evans. Meanwhile, the tight end Otten is doubtful with a personal issue, Cade Otten that is, and then Donovan Smith, their left tackle, also doubtful for this game. That is a huge one to keep an eye on. They are so banged up on their offensive line that if they could get him to play, it would be a huge win for them. If not, they're on their third string left tackle. They're on their backup left guard. They're on their backup center. Their left side of the line would be really, really rough. So Donovan Smith, a huge name to keep an eye on as the inactives come through. But as of right now, he is listed as doubtful. Questionable, also some key players: Leonard Fournette, Russell Gage, Julio Jones, and Brashad Perryman. Notice that Gage, Julio, and Perryman, all wide receivers. We already know Godwin and Evans are out, so this is huge as well. Now, Fournette and Julio and Perryman all practiced. Fournette seems like he's going to be totally fine. I would expect Perryman to play. It seems like Julio is a true game time decision. We'll have to wait and see. Russell Gage is an interesting one here because he could have a huge role with all the receivers that are out. He practiced all week, but then had a downgrade and did not practice on Friday's practice. So that will be another very interesting one to keep an eye on. So the names you really want to look at on Sunday for the Packers, obviously they're four questionable players. For the Bucs, Donovan Smith, Russell Gage, Julio Jones. I think those are the big three to kind of keep an eye on if they're active or not. So a lot of injuries in this very important NFC matchup for both the Buccaneers and the Packers. All right, that does it for injuries. We'll obviously kind of keep an eye on this. Remember, last week, Rudy Ford had a last-minute injury designation. That can happen from time to time as well. So we'll cover you with any updates. And, of course, I'll be on Twitter as soon as those inactives, launch 90 minutes prior to kickoff. So make sure to follow on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. All right, let's get to the Bucs film review. I want to start with this Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. They are the number one scoring defense in football. Now, They played the Jets, and then they played and Joe Flacco, I think it was. Correct me if I'm wrong. Now I want to almost look it up. But they played last week, more importantly, the Saints, and then Jameis Winston and company. It's not like they went against the strongest offenses in the world, but they have been incredible so far, and they're the number one scoring defense in football through 2 weeks. And I went and watched the Saints film, both offense and defense. I was so impressed with the Buccaneers defense. So I had 10 notes as I wrote down through the course. These are just my notes in order as I took them. The first, and it's not going to surprise you, but their team speed and the way that they rallied to the football was so impressive. And this is a team that is going to punish you over the middle of the field with their safeties, with their corners, with their linebackers, all of them. They are so aggressive, coming down and playing a very attacking brand of football, hitting you hard and making you pay for anything over the middle. You are going to have to earn everything that you do. Now, the Packers catch a huge break with Akeem Hicks being out because they basically had a setup where Akeem Hicks and Vita Vea, you weren't running inside. And then you've had, on the outside, Joe Tryon and then Shaq Barrett. Just two tremendous edge rushers, and both can set the edge incredibly well. Meanwhile, you can't run inside. If you try to run outside, you have two good edge setters, but more importantly, you've got Devin White and Levante David who can get to the outsides in a millisecond. More on that in a second, but they have the speed there. And then their corners they come up and attack you. Their safeties come up and attack you. They'll go with some single high safety, and they'll take that extra safety in the box. They will blitz you. They will play attacking brand of football. But man, they kept everything in front of them. And anytime anything, came inside, like it was just a swarm to the football. They hit you hard. They hit you fast. And you watch it from an all 22 version, and you watch the quarterback, and you're just going like, man, where did they go with the ball? There just was no passing lanes. And if you did complete something, it was like a 3-yard, little dump off, and everyone just was on them right away. It was so impressive to watch the team speed of Tampa Bay. And the strength of this defense, and this will not be a surprise as well, is Levante David and Devin White. And I want to single out Devin White for a second because I've seen some of the PFF grades for Devin White, and they haven't always been good. And we certainly saw from a NFC Championship game what Devin White can do against the Packers. But this was really my first major opportunity to get to watch Devin White from an all-22 standpoint and really kind of focus on him. I was blown away. Yeah, sometimes he's going to take a misstep. Sometimes he's going to play a different gap than he is supposed to. He is so insanely fast and instinctual that all of that stuff doesn't even matter. He makes up for it and then some with his speed. And he is playing downhill football. The Packers defense right now is not playing downhill football. They have good players. They're not playing downhill attacking football. That's something that needs to change, quite frankly. But you watch this Tampa Bay defense and see how they attack everything and the mentality that Devin White has. Holy crap. There were multiple plays. There was one play where Devin White blitzed inside, came almost to the right. The play goes all the way to the left on the sidelines. You know who made the tackle? Devin White. There's another play that is going to the outside. Levante David is the linebacker closest to that side. He gets picked off. Devin White gets to the sideline so fast that it's like almost unfathomable. Like there are safeties, and I even think maybe corners in this league that are not moving the way that Devin White is moving. And he is physical, he is fast, he's intimidating. And then, by the way, they will bring these linebackers up the middle, and you all of a sudden, as your quarterback, I'm watching this from Jameis Winston's eyes, you've got linebackers crossing, coming right at you, and it's Levante David and Devin White, and they're coming a million miles per hour and just like full bore ahead, and all of a sudden you've got this defense that's coming up. It is intimidating as you can possibly imagine. I'm not overstating this. This is a very, very good Tampa Bay defense, and a huge reason why is their linebackers on the second level, Levante David, and I was so impressed with Devin White when I watched that Saints game. Shaq Barrett, just another violent physical player on the outside. You have to account for him at all times. And he has a variety of pass rush moves. He will beat you with violence. He will beat you with strength. He's quick. He's shifty. he can beat you all over the place. And who's ever at left tackle, whether it's David Bakhtiari making his first, real, hopefully full game start in like 2 years. I know he had the Detroit game, but like this is a world of a difference going against Shaq Barrett in this Tampa Bay defense. Or whether it's Yash Nyman, they're going to have their work cut out for them against Shaq Barrett. So, and they'll move him around a little bit as well, but he is such a physical, intense player. And he is somebody that, if you're talking about from a pass rush standpoint, right? When they're just rushing 4, Vita Vea, can get there a little bit. He can collapse a pocket, but he's not going to be the big pass rush specialist. They're inside guys. Logan Hall is an intriguing player, but he's not quite there yet. Joe Tryon is certainly a fast, physical, aggressive player, but he's not like a bona fide big time pass rusher yet. When you talk about just when they're coming with 4, it's Shaq Barrett that you have to make sure you're aware of. He is a game wrecker, and you cannot let him wreck the game. Number 4 is, I wrote this down. I wrote down you have to have patience against the Buccaneers, which I believe is true, but I also question whether it's the right thing to do in a way. So I don't know how I would go about attacking this if I were an offensive coordinator. Tampa Bay's defense, like I said, is going to swarm to everything. They're going to keep everything in front of them. And then once you complete something short, they're going to be there hitting you hard, fast, aggressive, etc. They're a sound tackling team. And if you just try to do a bunch of dink and dunk stuff, like you're going to get 3 yards here, 2 yards here, incomplete pass, and you're just going to end up frustrated. I do believe that you have to figure out a way to establish the run. And I think it's going to have to be a very patient run offense, because I did see the Saints have success running the football at times, but they also went through a stretch where they couldn't get much going either. And I think it's going to be that sort of day. And I really think that Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur and company are going to have to stay patient with running the football, because you really want that safety to come down and start tipping their hands and then start being able to take some shots against a single high safety defense. How I view this, and I was going to talk about this as one of my other keys here, but I wrote down run the football and take your deep shots. If you try to live with short and intermediate passing, you're going to get crushed. It's just, you're playing right into Tampa Bay's hands. You're going to look down the field in those short and intermediate passes. They're not going to be there. You're not going to see anything open. And meanwhile, their defense is coming at you fast paced and going to just probably hit the snot out of the quarterback on multiple occasions. To me, you got to hit some of those, smoke wide receiver screens to the outside. You've got to, which is basically like an extended handoff. You've got to get the running backs involved, really from a running game, maybe some screens, some things like that. But you also have to take your deep shots down the field. I think there's a real legitimate possibility that your best chance of scoring and getting down the field are on shot plays. And you're just going to have to take some one-on-one chances, hope you get some pass interference calls. But I think if you try to go with a bunch of 12-play, 80-yard drives against this defense, I think you're going to have a really long day. I would rather almost, really establish the run and really try to set up your shot plays. So almost like 0 or 100. And this is almost like the launch angle in baseball, right? Like, if you're facing a good pitcher and you're going to try to grind out singles all day, you're just not going to get the job done. You're going to need to hit a few home runs to get runs on the board. I feel like that's the way against Tampa Bay's defense. They're susceptible at times to the deep ball. You're going to have to hit those deep shots. It's why I hope Christian Watson can play in this game. If not, up to Romeo Doubs, Alan Lazard, those guys are going to have to be huge down the field, but you're just going to have to take those deep shots. And like I said, even if you don't complete some of them, maybe you can get some pass interference calls and move the field, move the ball down the field that way. If Aaron Rodgers could get some of his free plays, Tampa did have a false start against the Saints this past week. So if Aaron can get some of those free plays, that could go a long way as well, but they're going to have to attack the football down the field. Other notes from this Tampa defense, they contest absolutely everything. They have fantastic communication in zone coverage. They literally move as like a singular unit, which is like the best thing you can ever say about a defense is A, they rally to the football, and B, they move as one. I saw flashes of that from this Joe Barry defense a season ago where you saw this team moving as one. I haven't seen it quite so far in the first 2 weeks of this season. So, but you definitely saw it against the Saints for Tampa Bay. Very sound tackling. And then the other two notes, they will tip cover 3 at times. Like they're not, at least against the Saints, they didn't even disguise it. Like it was everyone up, corner, safety high. And like a third grader could read that it was cover three, so, and it was like, they weren't disguising it. So I do think Aaron might have some opportunities to kind of say, like, especially if they've got some cover three plays, like kind of built in as some checks. I think if Tampa, tips their hand a little bit, that Aaron could potentially take advantage of some of those looks, just knowing what is going to come ahead of time. And then I think the last thing here is that you just really don't want to get behind against this team, because it is hard enough to play the Bucs if you have run and pass as options. If you take away the threat of a running game and you're just having to go, 11 or, 4 wide receivers and throw the ball a ton, you're just cooked at that point, because this defense is just way too good. So you have to keep them on balance, and you have to keep them honest, and you have to be able to run the football and throw and just kind of keep them off balance at all times. Buccaneers offense, sort of the exact opposite. Super unimpressive against the Saints. Give the Saints defense a ton of credit in that game as well. But they were not at the caliber that the Buccaneers defense was, not even close. And while Matt LaFleur tried to downplay Mike Evans and his not being available in this game, it is a huge deal. That seemed like, and of course Godwin's going to be out as well, but it seemed like the one guy that Brady really trusted and had a built-in rapport with in that game was Mike Evans. And losing that, I think, is going to be really, really tough for them, because you can tell. And another note that I had here is Brady's not in rhythm with these other wide receivers yet. Brashard Perryman, Scotty Miller, those guys, they're not in sync yet, the way that you would normally expect a Brady offense to be. He spent all offseason with, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans and Russell Gage and those guys, and not as much time, obviously, with Scotty Miller and Brashard Perryman. And didn't get enough, really a ton of time with Julio Jones either, because he came in late in the process. So he's just not in rhythm yet with his wide receivers, and that's hopefully an opportunity for Green Bay to take those receivers out of the game. And like I said, Mike Evans, a massive, massive loss in this game. I do think that Green Bay is going to have a different philosophy than they played the last 2 games. Green Bay played a ton, and I mean a ton, of vanilla defense, have not brought a blitz, have brought some 5-man pressures, but not off of a blitz, just a 5-man line where they brought everyone. They're going to have to switch things up. This cannot be a easy diagnosable cover 2, cover 4, cover 3 system. Like, you're going to have to play some man, play some zone, mix things up, bring some blitzes. The bend but don't break is, I understand the philosophy. Brady has a PhD, a doctorate, a bachelor's, an associate's. He's got everything in picking apart, bend but don't break defenses. He will paper. He is the greatest of all time, period. But he's even better at just paper cutting teams to death. 5 yards here, 3 yards there, 6 yards here, 4 yards here, 3 yards there, 7 yards there. Like, he doesn't care. And then, like, just as you start to play that, all right, 30 yards there, 45 yards here. But you've got to come up and challenge. You cannot just let him dink and dunk his way down the field, because, like I said, he has his doctorate in picking apart that style of defense. So Joe Barry's going to have to mix things up this coming week. Number 4 or 5, I don't even know what I'm on now for the Bucs offense. But while their left side of the line is like center, left guard, left tackle is an absolute mess, Shaq Mason at right guard, Tristan Wirfs at right tackle, 2 very good football players that create quite the tandem on the right side. So that is a it's strength and weakness. So this is where you have to decide, like, okay, do I want to put a bunch of Rashawn Gary over on that side so that they can't run the ball as well, and I still have a strength? It's kind of strength against strength. Or do I want to try to match up so that, Kenny Clark and Rashawn Gary are on the other side, so I'm getting those, easy matchups, but then knowing that Wirfs and Mason may be able to control the line of scrimmage in the run game on the other side. So that's going to be a little bit of a balance here that both teams are going to have to kind of, a little dance that they're going to have to play with each other of, especially from a Green Bay standpoint of who do they want on what side, and do you try to play into Tampa Bay's strengths, or do you try to attack, take away their strength or attack their weakness? And that's going to have to be a Joe Barry decision. I actually thought that the pass pro was okay for Brady. Now, as Ben Fennell has noted on numerous occasions, if you're an offensive lineman for Tom Brady, you are in the absolute best position possible, because Brady stays in like this very small little box, does little dances around in it so that you can't get a finger on him, and gets rid of the ball in like 1.8 seconds on like every single play. So your job description. You don't have to worry about somebody looping around the edge because the ball is gone. You just have to hold up and kind of stay in between your guy. And even if you even if you're getting beat, you can just kind of shove him around Brady because he's in that tight little pocket. So your job description as an offensive lineman with Tom Brady at quarterback is a lot more simple than almost any other quarterback. But so I do think they had actually pretty good pass protection. A lot of that's due to Brady, but their run blocking was very poor. Their running backs in this past game, and again, give the Saints defense credit, 26 carries, 66 yards, a long of 13, and a 2.5 yard average. Those were their running backs this past game. So they really struggled to get the running game going. That's something that Green Bay has to control once again. If they can make Tampa one-dimensional and really hopefully take Leonard Fournette in that Bucs running game out of it. Their offensive line being so beat up gives Green Bay a major advantage in that situation. And then last but not least, I mentioned this kind of earlier, but they need a lot more creativity out of Joe Barry. He's just got to be, I think, a bit more aggressive than he has been. Now, you don't want to blitz Brady a ton either. There's no perfect calculus to defend Tom Brady. You blitz him, he'll get the ball out fast, and the playmakers will make plays. You don't blitz him, and he'll paper cut you to death. There's just no perfect solution. But I think the one thing you can't do is just play vanilla and just have Brady be able to read everything at the line of scrimmage and not be confused by anything at all. So you're going to have to change things up, disguise coverages, and really make things at least as difficult as possible on a quarterback who knows everything, sees everything, gets the ball out of his hands as quickly as possible. This game, to me, this is going to sound very lame and cliche and boring. Turnovers, special teams, tackling, fundamentals, those aspects of this game are going to play a massive, massive part. These are two defenses that are way better than the opposing offenses right now. This should be a low-scoring game, and points are going to be at a premium. Red zone efficiency, going to be huge. You can't miss extra points. You can't miss field goals. Every point is going to be insanely valuable. Taking care of the ball, insanely valuable. Extra hidden yardage on special teams, insanely valuable. Yards after contact. David Montgomery made a living this past game on yards after contact. You can't do the same with Leonard Fournette. You've got to get him down on initial contact. And then, like I said, just the fundamentals of football. It's going to be a close, competitive, beatdown game in Tampa, in the heat, place where Green Bay has struggled in the past. It should be a very competitive game. I think it could be an ugly game. For entertainment purposes only, I really like the under in this game, but either way, should be a fun one. Brady Rodgers on Sunday in Tampa. I'll be right back here tomorrow with a pregame show, including my prediction for the game. Make sure to check that out and subscribe if you haven't already. Once again, I really appreciate you joining me today. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.